The wedding night began in silence, and that silence felt heavy enough to crush the breath right out of her chest. The rain beat hard against the wagon roof as it rattled across the muddy streets of Austin, Texas, in the year 1874. Elena Hartwell sat stiff on the worn leather seat, her hands inside white gloves that hid the way her fingers shook. Her wedding dress was made of soft ivory cotton and lace, but tonight it felt like a rope tied tight around her body. Every stitch felt like a rule. Every pearl felt like a weight. She kept her eyes away from the small wagon mirror because she already knew what she would see if she looked. The same face she had carried for 7 long years. A face that looked calm on the outside but hid secrets deep under the skin. The storm outside only grew stronger. The lamps along the street blurred into smears of gold and gray. Somewhere ahead waited her new husband, Duke Vallon Hayes, the wealthy cattle baron who owned more land than anyone in 3 counties. She had met him only 4 times before this day, 3 times at church gatherings. One time in her cousin Cedric's parlor when the marriage had been arranged. Cedric had spoken as if sorting out debts, not people. A suitable match, he had said. The rancher needs a quiet bride. You will behave yourself. You will show him gratitude. And above all else, you will stay silent. Silent. That word had followed her for years. The wagon suddenly jolted as it turned onto the long dirt road leading to Hayes Ranch. Elena tightened her arms across her body. Pain shot up her back, sharp and familiar. It was a pain born from a memory she could never escape, a memory everyone called an accident, though it had been nothing of the sort. 7 years earlier she had walked down the stone steps behind Cedric's house. He had been angry that day. Something about her talking too kindly with the ranch hand, though nothing wrong had ever happened. In his rage he pushed her. Not once, not twice. 3 long falls down those sharp steps. Her body had hit each one with a crack she could still hear in her sleep. The doctor spoke in low tones about healing, about whether she would ever walk without pain. No one spoke about the deep slashes carved across her back, marks shaped like twisted flowers. Mark Cedric claimed came from the fall. Everyone believed him. He was a respected man. She was only his poor cousin. She had no one in the world except Meera, the old housekeeper who had cleaned Elena's wounds in secret and held her when the pain became too much to bear. The wagon stopped. Through the rain she saw the tall wooden house of Hayes Ranch, glowing with lantern light. Several ranch hands hurried out with umbrellas, ready to welcome the new bride. Elena stepped down, her dress already soaking through. The front door opened and Duke Hayes stood waiting beneath the main chandelier. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and dark brown hair. She had found him cold before, but now, in his own home, he looked carved from old Western stone. Strong, still, hard to read. He stepped forward and offered his hand. "Mrs. Hayes, I hope the journey was not too tiring." "Not at all," she said, her voice steady though her heart pounded like a trapped horse. He led her inside past polished wood walls and framed portraits of his family. They sat together through a quiet supper, pretending they were not strangers bound by a contract neither had chosen with a whole heart. Later that night, after the house went still, Elena found herself alone in the bedroom that joined his. She began to undress. Her fingers shook as she pulled at the ties of her dress. When the white fabric slid away, only her thin shift remained. She stood before the mirror and saw one pale scar near her shoulder, a thin curved line like a question mark, a question no one had dared to ask. Footsteps sounded in the next room. Her breath caught. The moment she had feared since the marriage was arranged had finally arrived, the moment her body would be exposed. Not her beauty, not her modesty, but the truth. A soft knock came. "Come in," she said, though her voice hardly rose above a whisper. The door opened. Duke Hayes stepped inside. The candle beside her flickered, throwing light across her back as she turned slightly. Her shift slipped just enough for the scars to show. All of them. A whole garden of past pain laid bare across her skin. The silence that followed felt endless. He stood still, no anger, no disgust, no cold judgment. Just something deep and steady she could not name. She reached to pull the fabric up, ready to give the practiced lie Cedric had forced upon her. "Do not," the Duke said quietly. Her hand froze. "Do not hide what I see." His voice carried no sharpness, only truth, only weight. "These are not flaws," he said. "These are stories." Her eyes lifted to his, expecting pity. She found none. Only a steady understanding that unsettled her more than anger ever had. "I will not ask you tonight who did this," he said, "but I will ask you one thing. Were you hurt by accident, or were you hurt by someone's hand?" Her throat closed. She could not speak. She did not need to. "I understand," he said softly. "And we will talk when morning comes." He placed a warm robe over her shoulders, gentle, careful. Then he stepped away and left her alone in the quiet room. Elena stood there in the soft light, wrapped in kindness she had not expected, and for the first time in years the tears came, strong, heavy, free. The morning light in Texas came slow and pale, slipping through the thin curtains of Elena's new room. She woke to the soft clatter of dishes on a tray. A young maid entered with her eyes down, carrying breakfast. On the tray lay a folded note written in a clean, careful hand. Elena opened it with trembling fingers. "Ma'am, I have business in town today and will return after sundown. I have brought Meera Fenwick to stay with you. You may trust her. She will not be sent away unless you wish it. Your servant, Valen Hayes." She read the last line twice. For a long moment she simply stared at the page. Then, as if called by the thought alone, Meera stepped into the doorway. Older now, slower, but still, with the same warm eyes that had comforted Elena when she was 19 years old and bleeding on the cold stone floor. "Oh, my dear child," Meera said as she rushed in. "Has he hurt you? Tell me right now." "No," Elena whispered. "He did the opposite." Later that morning they sat together in a small sitting room overlooking the ranch yard. Meera poured tea while Elena spoke. At first, her words came shaky and unsure. Then faster. Then all at once, years of silence finally breaking. She told Meera everything she had never said out loud. Cedric's rage. The fall down the steps. The pain that never left her. The threats. The shame. The way she had been pushed into this marriage like cattle through a gate. Meera listened without interrupting. Her hands stayed still on her lap. Her eyes glistened, but she did not cry. She waited until Elena finished before she spoke. "The Duke asked me something," Meera said softly. "Before you arrived here, he asked if there were matters in your past that would require quiet handling. I told him they were not mine to reveal, but I said this. He is a man who can recognize suffering because he has known it himself. I believe he sees more than you think." Elena looked down at her hands. How could he know so much from only a few meetings? "Men who have suffered can often see suffering in others," Meera replied. "His father had a cruel hand. The ranchers around here still speak of it. The Duke has spent most of his life rejecting that legacy." Elena was still thinking about those words when Valen returned after sundown. She waited for him in the parlor, dressed in a simple green dress that did not show her shoulders. When he entered the room, he brought with him the cold night air and a seriousness that wrapped around him like a coat. "I have made some inquiries," he said, "regarding your cousin Cedric Armitage, and regarding the money from your father's small estate. I found documents changed, records missing, sums taken." Elena's heart clenched. "Your Grace, please. You cannot involve yourself in this. Cedric will come after you. He will lie." "He will." "He already has," Valen said, cutting her off gently, and I was ready. He stepped closer, but not too close. "Your cousin planned to accuse you of madness," he said. "He was going to tell folks that I had taken you to some asylum in San Antonio. He said you had become dangerous. Unstable. He meant to shame you and me." Elena's knees almost gave out. Why would he do such a thing? "Because he knew the truth was close behind him," Valen answered. Because he feared what you might say if you ever found your voice again. She shook her head. No one will believe me against him. He is respected. You are no longer his poor cousin, Valen said, his voice firm. You are Mrs. Hayes, a rancher's wife, the mistress of this land. And Cedric's power over you ends the moment you accept that truth. She stared at him, unsure how to breathe. You were hurt, he continued. And what he did was not discipline or punishment. It was an assault meant to silence you. And he stole from you. The proof is clear. But the world will judge him, not you, he said. And if they try, they will answer to me. His words were not harsh, but steady, like the earth, like something she could lean against for the first time in years. He turned toward the window. I was raised to hide my feelings, he said. My father taught me that weakness had no place in a man's life. But I saw you last night, Elena. I saw your scars, and I saw the strength it took for you to stand there at all. She felt her chest tighten. I am not promising life without trouble, he said, but I promise you this. While you are under my roof, you will never be harmed again. And when you are ready to speak, I will listen. Elena stood very still. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever put their words around her like protection instead of chains. Why? She whispered. Why would you bother with all this trouble for me? Valen looked straight at her. I will not be another man who sees a woman suffering and chooses silence. She felt something shift inside her, something long buried, something like hope. He reached out his hand, not to take her, not to claim her, but to offer a choice. She placed her hand in his. And for the first time, since she was 19 years old, she felt safe. Autumn settled over Texas like a warm blanket, and life on Hayes Ranch grew softer in ways Elena never expected. At first she moved through the big house like a visitor, careful with every step, but soon she found small comforts. The kitchen girls smiled at her. The ranch hands tipped their hats with respect instead of duty. And Meera walked beside her each morning, giving her the kind of quiet courage she had forgotten she could feel. Valen stayed busy with ranch work and business in town, yet he always returned with a steady presence that filled the house in a safe way. He never pushed her. Never asked for more than she could give. He simply offered himself as someone she could trust, one day at a time. One afternoon, Elena wandered into his library. It was a warm room filled with shelves of old books and ranch journals. She ran her fingers across the spines, surprised to see notes written in the margins. Careful handwriting. Thoughts. Questions. Hopes. She realized they belonged to Valen. This room was where he kept the parts of himself he never showed the world. That evening, Valen found her there. You read my mother's poetry book, he said gently as he noticed the one open on her lap. She nodded. It speaks of healing, of growing from pain. It felt true. He sat across from her. The firelight softened his rough features. I have read those words many times, he said, but they never meant anything until I saw them in your hands. Elena felt her breath catch. You give me more credit than I deserve. No, Valen said. I give you exactly the credit you earned. He told her something then, something that felt like a door unlocking. My father was a hard man, Valen said. People here still whisper about him. He believed fear was the only language that mattered. I spent most of my life trying to unlearn the lessons he taught. Elena listened closely. She had never heard him speak like this. When I saw your scars, he said softly, I understood that you had suffered more than I ever did. And yet you stayed gentle, you stayed kind. You survived without letting pain turn you cruel. Her eyes warmed with tears. I have come to love you, Valen said, the firelight flickering across his face. Not because of gratitude, not because of duty, but because your strength has changed something in me. Elena stood and walked to the window. Nights on the ranch were quiet, gentle, safe. Something inside her shifted like a river changing course. I do not know how to love, she whispered. I was taught to fear emotion, to keep quiet, to hide. Valen rose and joined her, keeping a respectful distance. "You do not have to declare anything today," he said. "I only ask for your honesty, and for your presence. Stay with me because you want to, not because you have no place else to go." Tears touched her cheeks. Slow, honest, free. "I want to stay," she said, "because when I am here I feel alive, not just surviving." Valen's shoulders relaxed. It was the first time she had seen him truly breathe. Winter came early that year, bringing cold winds across the plains. But inside the house warmth grew. Elena and Valen shared slow evenings in the library. Walks around the pasture. Quiet conversations that built trust piece by piece. Their bond became something strong enough to face the world beyond the ranch. The world did test them. Cedric's scandal hit the newspapers in Austin like a lightning strike. Reports of stolen funds, false papers, mistreatment of his young cousin. Some believed him innocent. Others called him a snake, finally cornered. Elena trembled when she saw the article, but Meera steadied her. "It has begun," Meera said. "The truth is loose now, and it will not go back in its cage." Valen confirmed it that same morning. "Cedric tried to accuse you of madness," he said. "Before he could speak a word, I made sure the world saw him for who he is." Elena covered her face, shaking. "Everyone will know. Everyone." "Then let them," Valen said, "because you have nothing to be ashamed of." Days passed, some folks whispered, but others offered kindness she never expected. Even the ranch wives who once watched her with sharp judgment now greeted her with gentle nods. And then something changed inside her. She stopped hiding her back when she dressed in the morning. She stopped lowering her voice when she walked into a room. She allowed herself to breathe without fear. One evening, Valen led her outside. The sky was painted pink and gold. Cottonwood trees rustled in a soft breeze. "I have something for you," he said. He pulled a small velvet box from his coat. Inside was a ring made of gold shaped like a key. "It belonged to my mother," he said. "I kept it locked away for years. But it is not a symbol of ownership, not to me. It is a symbol of trust. A symbol of giving someone full access to your heart." Her breath hitched. "I want to marry you again," Valen said. "Not the way it happened the first time, not with fear and silence, but with choice, with truth, with your voice." Elena's heart swelled with something new, something brave. "Yes," she whispered. "I will marry you again." They wed in a small chapel near the edge of the ranch. No audience, no gossip, only Meera, a preacher, and two hearts learning to trust again. And as Valen slipped the key ring onto her finger, Elena understood her own truth. Her scars were not shame. They were survival. And here, in this wide Texas land, with a man who saw her whole truth and did not turn away, she had finally found a home where she could live freely, where she could love without fear, where her voice mattered, and where silence was no longer her prison, but a soft, peaceful place she chose only when she wished to rest.